In this podcast, we will be discussing sensitive topics such as sexual assault. It is important to take care of yourself while listening. Help is available through your local rape crisis center, and you can visit MCASA.org for more information on how to be connected. Hey everyone, it's Meredith, Training and Engagement Specialist at the Maryland Coalition Against Sexual Assault, and this is MCASA On the Go, the official podcast of the Maryland Coalition Against Sexual Assault. MCASA is the federally recognized state sexual assault coalition providing training, technical assistance, and policy advocacy to rape crisis centers and member organizations across the state. MCASA also provides direct legal services to survivors of sexual assault through our Sexual Assault Legal Institute. In this podcast, we discuss topics including, but not limited to, sexual violence prevention and response, legal issues surrounding sexual violence, and highlighting the services available for survivors across the state of Maryland. April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, where we work to build a connected community dedicated to ending sexual violence and supporting survivors, so we're bringing back our SAM podcast series. In today's episode, we will be bringing awareness to non-consensual condom removal, most commonly known as stealthing. All right, everyone, welcome back to the second episode of our Sexual Assault Awareness Month podcast series. I am joined again by Maddy, Rhea, and Hanah. If you haven't listened to our first episode, please be sure to check that out. But if you're joining us for the first time, we'll just go around and do some introductions again.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maddy LaCure, the Policy Advocate for Prevention and Education at MCASA. Welcome back.
Hi, my name is Hanah Jamian. I'm one of the program interns at MCASA.
And my name is Rhea, and I'm also a program intern at MCASA.
So today for our second episode, we wanted to talk about a form of sexual violence that some people might be familiar with, but it's often not talked about when we talk about sexual violence. So we really just wanted to bring awareness to this form of violence that's often overlooked. Rhea, our program intern, will be taking us through some of the research that she's conducted on non-consensual condom removal. You may also have heard this called stealthing, but we're going to pass it right over to Rhea to lead us through.
Thank you. So, as we know, sexual assault is one of the most harmful and traumatic events an individual can experience, and it represents one of the strongest violations to one's privacy, safety, and overall autonomy. But as Meredith was mentioning earlier, some acts that violate an individual's consent are not talked about as sexual assault. And this is non-consensual condom removal is also referred to as stealthing, and it's defined as the removal of a condom non-consensually during sexual intercourse. A little bit of background on this term: it was first popularized among forums and blogs that hosted participants of the men's rights movement. And they were teaching men how to complete this action without getting caught as a way to coerce women and increase their own pleasure. And so it's deeply upsetting and a very problematic trend, but it also warrants discussion as well.
This form of sexual violence is also concerning because it's not as widely known as a type of sexual assault, and one might not even be aware that it's happened. Sexual violence is an umbrella term for many kinds of sexual acts without consent, and experiencing sexual violence can be confusing for a survivor. Cases of non-consensual condom removal are often consensual at first, so meaning that folks have agreed to a form of sexual activity using contraception such as condoms, but violations of initial consent occur after sexual intercourse has already begun, when someone removes a condom secretly and deceptively without their partner's knowledge. Sexual assault is about taking away power and control from another, and deceiving a partner and tampering with contraception is a clear way to take control and do harm. Survivors can also experience the transmission of sexually transmitted infections and unwanted pregnancy as a result of this violation.
So I know that non-consensual condom removal is a topic that's not widely discussed. Do you guys know when you first heard the term and what you thought about it?
Yeah, stealthing is definitely a newer term for me. It's something that I hadn't even heard of until I kind of got into this work. But it's definitely I hate to use the word trend, but definitely something that I've seen on social media, and that's talked about amongst these like individuals within these forums. And that's kind of how I've heard of it. But yeah, it's really, really gross.
Yeah, I'll also just add that I've heard it referred to as stealthing. So I really appreciate Rhea in this research bringing to us to really define the act for what it is, of calling it non-consensual condom removal, to really, bring power back to those who are experiencing this form of sexual violence, and not naming it with the name that was given as a way to cause harm. So I agree, definitely seeing this, in the last few years, online, and, discussions of this, really harmful form of sexual violence that we're really working to recognize as sexual violence and support survivors who are experiencing this form of sexual assault.
Yeah, I also hadn't heard about this until the past 5 years or so. I think it's really come to light. And, I hadn't heard of it until I started working here at MCASA. And I also, like everyone here, had heard it referred to as stealthing. But I just think it's absolutely disturbing. Like the fact that it's being encouraged and like people on the internet are giving tips on how to perform this act of violence just is really gross. Like there's no other word really to describe it. So I just think that it's something that we really need to bring awareness to. And I think people who have experienced this may not think that an act of violence has been committed against them. And so I think it's just really important that we name it for what it is. And I know we've all mentioned that we've heard it referred to as stealthing. So I just want to ask Rhea, because I know you've done a lot of research on this topic and renaming it and bringing light to the act of non-consensual condom removal, but where does that expression stealthing originally come from? It just seems like the term that has been used historically doesn't really bring a lot of attention to the harm and the violation. It's not really clear, and it doesn't seem to reflect the action that's being committed against someone.
So the term stealthing refers to the cunning or skillful nature that a perpetrator must embody to commit this type of violation. And that is really, as everyone said, it's very gross and it's a very uncomfortable thought. And so that's one of the reasons also, as Meredith and Maddy were saying, that's one of the reasons why I think we shouldn't use that term to describe non-consensual condom removal, because it's named by the perpetrators in a positive way. So stealthing is also sometimes referred to as reproductive coercion, but the term isn't entirely accurate because there are other motives for non-consensual condom removal that involve more than wanting to get someone pregnant.
Thanks, Rhea, for that background. Can you share more about why someone would want to remove a condom without their partner's consent? Why are we seeing this as, something that's happening pretty frequently?
So one of the most obvious reasons is wanting to remove a condom to increase sexual pleasure. And other than that, there are also many harmful beliefs and ideas about gender roles and norms that can cause someone to do this. So, for example, with female victims, this can include beliefs that women don't have another purpose other than to reproduce and be there for sexual purposes, which is very jarring. And there are also many ways that non-consensual condom removal can be committed. So one can deceitfully remove a condom during sexual intercourse. One can fake the process of wearing a condom for sexual intercourse, and also poking holes in a condom for sexual intercourse for the purpose of semen wanting to enter a victim.
Non-consensual condom removal is also way more common than we know. So in a 2019 study describing the factors associated with non-consensual condom removal, it was found that out of a sample of 626 male participants, almost 10% of men engaged in stealthing at least once from the age of 14 years old. And these men reported high traits of sexual aggression, adversarial heterosexual beliefs, and rape myth acceptance. So this is actually happening way more than we ever thought.
Yeah, thank you all for sharing that additional information. I think it just also is really reflective, right, of the social norms and myths and gender roles that are still so prevalent in our society, that lead us to be, a reflection of those beliefs about gender roles and who's entitled to sexual pleasure and enjoyment, and things like that. So shifting kind of to prevention, Rhea and Hanah, what are some ways that you think we can include discussions around non-consensual condom removal, as well as reproductive coercion more generally in our prevention work?
As I said earlier, raising awareness about non-consensual condom removal matters so much because it's a topic that is rarely discussed when looking at sexual assault and advocacy for survivors. And this behavior is an unquestionable violation to one's bodily autonomy. And though knowledge about the subject is limited, it's important for survivors to know that they're believed and will be advocated for. And emotional support and education about non-consensual condom removal, just like we're doing now, are a few ways that we can help survivors and bring their voice to the front lines.
Yeah, it's so important to remember the importance of boundaries and creating an environment that prioritizes sexual and emotional safety when engaging in these sexual acts. An example of this can be as simple as just discussing your boundaries beforehand, such as whether or not you want to use a condom or any other form of contraception, likes and dislikes, and just overall expectations for a partner before engaging in a sexual act. And just addressing these beforehand, before engaging in the sexual act is really key.
Yeah, I think a lot of our prevention work is really focused around education, of things we're talking about, and focusing on respecting boundaries and respecting our intimate partners in discussions related to contraception, reproductive choice, and autonomy. So really that overlap between sexual violence prevention and healthy sexuality, and building healthy relationships with intimate partners is really important for this work. And again, kind of echoing what I said before, that this type of violence, this type of harm is really reflective, again, of those societal and cultural norms that we're still working to change, where everyone is respected in their choices and boundaries, and sexual rights really are respected in intimate relations. So I think it's super important that we bring this into the conversation, and really tying together the conversations between healthy sexuality and sexual violence prevention.
I also wanted to say that I think we are taught that, especially in media and movies, that sexual acts just happen in the spur of the moment all the time. And it's not normalized to have a healthy, open discussion about boundaries and about expectation. And so I think incorporating that into our lives and normalizing that really will help with prevention and just creating an environment that is safe.
Thanks for listening to MCASA On the Go. If you enjoyed today's episode and would like to support our podcast, please be sure to subscribe, share with others, and share on social media. If you or someone you know is a survivor of sexual violence, help is available. To find your local rape crisis center for advocacy and counseling services, please visit the website at the link in the description of this episode. For legal help, you can call MCASA's Sexual Assault Legal Institute at 301-565-2277 or toll free at 877-496-SALI. We'll be back next week with another episode of our Sexual Assault Awareness Month series. Thanks for listening.